All right. Okay. Hey, YouTube. How y'all doing? It is I, Amber Honey Raven, the big fat witchopotamus with her kind of crazy... Yeah, I had another haircut, y'all, and I'm loving it, but I'm sorry that I did not fix it today because it's really cute when it's fixed, but y'all, it's Sunday. And all I did was comb it, and I don't know why I have all this. Ooh, y'all, I got some major bronzer going on. Woo, I got crazy with bronzer. Anyway, y'all, yes, this is my tie-dyed Bucky shirt, and I wanted to do a video for you guys. So, this is going to be a book review. Yes, I have a giant Yeti cup, and yes, I am drinking that tea that I'm crazy about. Okay, so I mentioned this in a last video. I have gotten on to this Mangrove Bay tea. I'm going to show it to you. I told y'all the whole story about how I drank this at a really bougie restaurant one time, and I was so enamored with it that I had to call the restaurant and like figure out where to order it, and apparently it's kind of a special deal, but this is the passion fruit flavor. I'm going to put a link in the down bar if you want to check it out. Somebody, and you know who you are, somebody actually ordered this based on my recommendation, and she wrote to me and she was like, okay, first of all, how do I make this? Because in these packages, it's just loose. It's not like a tea bag. So I told her how I made it. Second of all, how much does it make? It makes a gallon at a time. Depending on how strong you like your tea. And she also cursed my existence because she said that she has already drank 4 gallons of tea this week. Or this last week, because it is delicious. They have different flavors, you guys. They have peach and like all these different flavors, but I tried the passion fruit in that restaurant and I've never been able to let go of it, and it is delicious. So, on to the book review, and how are you? Y'all, I was excited about this book and also not excited. So let me start out with this. So this book review is on The Candle and the Crossroads by Orion Foxwood. And as you can see, I have made lots and lots of notes. And if any of y'all ever get a hold of this book after I'm done with it, you will see that there are lots of my own highlightings and markings in this, because when I read a book, I jack it up by making notes and reminding myself of things. Okay, so first of all, yes, this book is available on Amazon, and it's cheap, y'all. I'll put a link in the down bar. And y'all, I keep saying I'll put a link in the down bar because people will ask me, they'll like come up in my inbox and say, hey, where can I get this? So it's just easier for me to put a link in the down bar. I'm not trying to like peddle books or shit. So I don't care if you buy this or not. I'm just telling you where you can get it if you are interested. This book is by Orion Foxwood, and it's published by Red Wheel Weiser. It's available there. You can get it on Amazon, whatever, and it's cheap. Let me tell you something. This book has been out for a little bit. I think this came out in, well, let's just look before I tell you wrong, because if I don't tell you the exact right date, somebody inevitably is going to bust up in here and be like, well, Amber Honey Raven doesn't know what she's talking about. So the copyright on this is 2012. So it's been out a little bit. And I'm going to tell y'all something. I was reluctant to read this. I had kind of gotten turned off of books about hoodoo and conjure a few years back because I had the misfortune of reading a couple of books that were not well written, that had some factually incorrect information, and that were kind of that thing where the author was all highbrow and like they're the only ones that know hoodoo and root work and you should only listen to what they say. And I just got really turned off. So I was just like, whatever. Well, a friend of mine recommended this to me. The cover is beautiful, I will say that. A friend of mine recommended this to me, and I was like, okay, I'll read it. Well, let me tell you something. This book was not what I expected. Okay, I went into this with a little bit of a negative headspace because I didn't expect it to be a good read. And this book was both unexpected and a delightful surprise, and I'm going to walk you through why. Have you ever read, you know how magic books will fall into 2 categories, and they'll kind of be that thing where it'll be a book where if you have no knowledge, you can jump into the book and it will be a bunch of recipes and a bunch of this and that and the other. And it's a book that basically says, pick me up and read me and you can immediately start practicing magic. And it may be full of like practical knowledge, which I love. There is a place for that. And then the other side of it is you'll have books where it's all someone's opinion and theory, and there's actually no basis in fact. There's no history, there's no lore, there's no recipes. It's just someone rambling on and on and on for 300 pages about why they think something is the way it is. And there is a place for that as well, because I've actually read several good books that are kind of philosophical type discussions where someone says, here's what I think and here's why I think it. This book surprised me, y'all, in a really good way. So here's the thing. Orion Foxwood was born into old style conjure and root work. Like his family, okay, they're from, I think he said he's from Virginia. I'm going to have to look. But he does talk a little bit about, you know, was he born in Virginia? Hang on. I'm looking because I want to make sure that I'm saying this correctly. Because, yep, Virginia, Shenandoah Valley. He talks a lot throughout this book about his mother, his grandmother, his sister, and what brought him into this particular line of work. And he doesn't just do hoodoo and root work. He works with the Fae. He's worked with Wicca. You know, he's got a pretty extensive knowledge, which I appreciate. Let me just tell y'all something. This book surprised me. I got into it and I expected the lore and the how, where, what, and why. But let me tell you what this entire book, and I'm going to tell you my book review in a nutshell. If you are a person who wants a shortcut and you want to be able to pick a book up and just start practicing and start doing spells and start doing ritual and whatever, and just go bullet point to bullet point, this book is not for you. It's not going to be something you're interested in. If you just want a quick and dirty, jump into it kind of practice where you can say you practice root work and be done with it, this book is not for you. If you want to shore up the foundations of why someone does root work, why and how to prepare yourself spiritually and mentally to do root work, this is your book. I was so pleasantly surprised throughout this book by the advice, well, let me not say advice, the wisdom that Orion Foxwood imparted in this book is phenomenal. I don't say this lightly. There was some wisdom in this book that I needed to hear right now personally, just based on where I'm at in my life. But there is some wisdom in this book that he has woven into telling you about root work and hoodoo and how things happened and why they happened. The wisdom that he kind of weaves into that, it left me shook. I'm going to read a couple of things for you so that you'll see what I mean. So obviously there is, you know, he's got chapters on attributes of, you know, attributes of hoodoo and how to call the paths. And he talks about Daddy Death and the Grim Reaper and, you know, the things that you would expect, the foundations of magic, like spirit side and working the signs and conjuring and doctoring the root. He talks about all the things you would expect, okay? He talks about all of those things. And I appreciate that. He talks about the origins of Southern Conjure. And one thing I also appreciated is he talked about how Southern root work is not just granny magic or Appalachian magic. It is not just African magic. It is not just the Celtic influence from the immigrants who came here from Ireland. He says over and over, look, this is a conglomeration of all of these kinds of knowledges, and here's how we know that, and here's why. And he also, I actually really appreciated here that he said, you know, if you're a racist, root work is not going to be for you. It's going to kick your butt, and here's why. I appreciated that. I feel like he's a pretty straight talker throughout this book, but I'm going to get to this point. So here's just a little tidbit of wisdom that I just found, but I'm going to get to the real wisdom in a minute. So there's a sentence in here where he says, conjure does come with a caveat. So if you're going to practice conjure, here's something you need to know right up front. It is going to force what lies in your heart to show itself. So it's wise to treat it with respect and keep it clean. So he reminds you, if you got a dirty heart, if you got rotten things in your heart, if you've got stuff that is unaddressed in your heart, conjure is going to bring that forward, and you need to be prepared for it. And he tells you how to prepare for it because he takes you through a whole, like, here's how to cleanse yourself to prepare yourself for this. He reminds you over and over that conjurers are human too. And that just because you do root work or any type of magic, that doesn't mean that you are some omnipotent being who's without flaw. He says unequivocally that he has met root workers from all ages, races, backgrounds, and ways of being who are both great root workers and terrible because they're human. He said some of them are unethical and some of them have great ethics. So I actually appreciated that he took the time to remind us that root workers are human too, okay? That we shouldn't put anybody up on a pedestal. The first half of this book, I swear it felt like he was reminding us to do our shadow work before we embark on a magic path, because over and over he says, you have to know yourself before you can practice, before you can conjure. You're not going to be able to conjure forth another entity, another being, or another energy without first getting to the root of who you are. So you have to doctor your own internal root before you can doctor an outside root. And I appreciated that. So this is what I wanted to get to you that really just, and this is about halfway through the book, and it just left me so shook, you guys. He does talk about crossroads, you know, candle work. He does talk about, you know, crossing and uncrossing. Again, all the things that you would expect. But let me find this little part that I just was like, wow, okay. I think you guys are really going to appreciate this. So one of the things that he talked about was every root worker, every magician, every practitioner has to kind of find their blue flame. And he says, you know, you're going to read about the concept of the blue flame in a lot of different books. You can read about that in Wicca. You can read about that in, you know, pretty much any magic path. They'll talk about the blue flame, which is kind of your inner magical core. It's the light inside of you, the spark inside of you that makes you want to know more about what's out in the ether. It makes you want to know more about the spirits and how to work with them and how they're going to come to you and how to help other people reach them. And he talks about the fact that there are things that will dampen the blue flame. And you know how we've all seen these videos, and you guys have asked me to talk about this at length, and I've seen other people. What if my spark goes out? How do I get back to practicing if I lose my spark? And you know, we can offer practical advice like, well, you just have to practice. Go to your altar, pray every day, light a candle. You have to actually do the thing. But he goes even deeper. He goes right to the core of the practitioner. He says, look, if you want to know what has dampened your blue flame, there are 4 things that will do it. And he tells you, and I'm going to tell you. Now, I'm going to try not to say word for word what this is because I want you to read this book. I am telling you, this book is not a waste of time. I have read books that are an incredible waste of time. Not this one. I read this cover to cover. Okay, that's how engaging it was. So he talks about the blue flame, and I'm going to share this with you because this is just one little part of the book that I think you'll resonate with, because we all can resonate. You're also going to feel overtones of Zen Buddhism in what I'm about to tell you. Because this kind of does weave its way through humanity that way. You're going to find the tenements of this in all religions. So listen to what this root worker says. Things that will dampen your blue flame. And he talks about how the blue flame is a concept that shows up in a lot of different traditions. And it's kind of just the primary source of the witch's power, the root worker's power. It's like your pilot light, okay? The 4 things that will put your pilot light out, that will dampen your spirit, that will dampen your blue flame. Number 1, the illusion of isolation. And that basically is our fear of abandonment, feeling disconnected, fear of being alone. And he talks about, you know, how when we feel disconnected, that will put our flame out because we just, you know, we're humans, we're social people. And he says that he feels like the primary wound in the human soul is pain from abandonment. And I so resonate with that. You guys know, like many of us have parental issues or love relationships that have gone wrong, and that all comes down to somebody left me, or I feel lonely, basically. And you know, he says that desperation can be the result of that, and you'll see that manifest with some witches, even here on YouTube, when they haven't kind of gotten right within themselves. You'll see that they kind of act in desperate ways, or they'll do really ugly things, or, you know, we could go into this whole diatribe about bullying and ugly behavior, but I'm going to leave that alone. Because, no. Let me get a drink of my tea. Second thing that will dampen your blue flame is the desire to possess. If you've ever studied Zen Buddhism, you'll know that the desire for things, coveting, wanting material things, wanting more friends, more things, a better car, that will dampen your spirit, because he says that it's a desperation to keep things controlled, to keep things predictable. And it leaves us in a lot of pain sometimes, because we think we have to have things in order to be happy. And he wants to remind us that there's not a need for bigger titles or more relationships. And y'all can resonate with that big titles thing, because we have people in our lives who are like, well, I am the supreme witch of Apex Mountain, and nobody has ever witched as good as I've witched in the witchy history of the witch world. Y'all know how that is. Those people really don't believe that about themselves. They just bark that out because they think if they make enough other people believe it, then maybe it will become true. And y'all know that that is bull malarkey. The third thing is the resentment of change. That will also dampen your spirit. The resentment of change comes out as anger, and it kind of turns into depression. So like when we're resistant to change, when we're not growing, when we're not doing different things, have y'all ever read that book, Who Moved My Cheese? When we don't learn that just because someone took our piece of cheese from here and put it over here, that yeah, you can actually still go get it. You're just going to have to do a little more work for it. The resistance to change is, again, it's also about control as well, but he talks about that anger can kind of make you feel out of sync with your life. And you guys have talked about, I've talked about it. You feel disconnected from your conjure work, from your witchery. Maybe one of these things is it. The fourth and final thing is the desire for absolutes. It is it's your need to be right all the time. It's your need to have rules about everything, for everything to be absolutely black or absolutely white. It's for things to be predictable. You'll notice that in people because they don't have any room to believe anything outside of what they already know. Those are the people that kind of are know-it-alls. And maybe it's not people, maybe it's just a theme that keeps popping up in your own life where someone presents something to you and says, this is all there is, and you know there's more, and you really want to believe that that's all there is, and you would like for it to believe that's all there is, and then you find yourself putting a lot of mental energy into going, well, that's all there is, and you know it isn't. So our desire for absolutes, and he talks about, our need to be right sometimes overrides the actual quality or accurateness of information. Like we ignore the truth for our truth. Now, that doesn't mean that our truth is not sometimes the truth. We just have to know the difference. That one little section in that book, I was just like, yes! And there are so many more. As y'all can see, I have notated the crap out of this book. I know this is almost already 20 minutes, but I will say this. This book is so packed full of good information, and in his writing style, let me just say this, Orion Foxwood, this borders on prose. The writing is beautiful. It is not just, here are the facts, ma'am. It is written so beautifully. There is poetry in these pages. It is beautifully written. You will feel, if you want a beautiful piece of writing to help you feel connected to conjure, this is it. I cannot recommend this book enough. I'm going to keep this book. I don't keep every book that I read. I sometimes pass them along, but this one, I'm definitely going to keep. I will also say that it has rave reviews from Christian Day, Christopher Penczak, Dorothy Morrison, pretty much everybody who's, published in the witchy world, they've given a good review to this book. Peter Padden, Star Casas, yeah, they've all read it. They all agree. This is a wonderful book. So I will give this one 5 out of 5, y'all. Like everything about it was spot on for me. I'm next going to start reading a different book, so be looking for this one. My next book is going to be Santa Muerte, The History, Rituals, and Magic of Our Lady of the Holy Death. I probably will not be able to get to this one for a couple of weeks because I'm making other videos. And I will say also, before I go, I was so, immediately happy because, y'all, he talks about the collection of graveyard dirt in this book, and I had not read this book, but a few weeks ago on my Patreon, I made a video about the proper collection of graveyard dirt. His method and my method are almost exactly the same. He's got some different things that he does in his that I may want to incorporate in mine. But he also talks about why behind certain things, and I think you'll appreciate that. So check all my links down below. If you pick this book up or if you've already read this, please let me know what you thought. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I just thought it was fantastic. It's one of the better books I've read in a very long time. I gotta say, y'all, Red Whale's putting some good books out. Like, I've been pretty happy with everything that I've gotten from them. Like, it's all really quality stuff. So anyway, check it out. That is my book review. Be looking for another video later this week. I think we'll do some crafts. And oh, and I want to show you what's in this box later. That was dirty of me. Anyway, there's something good in this box that is not sexual. So anyway, until next time, huge blessings to you. And yeah, let me know if you got that book and what you think. Yay! Happy Sunday. Have a good week. And I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.